And we're live. Thanks very much for tuning in, everyone, to this very extra special Live with Kobo Writing Life, where we have our very own in-house experts, people that I have bribed to talk to us for an hour during their lunchtime. We're doing an Ask Kobo Anything. So if there's any questions that you've been meaning to ask us, haven't gotten around to, let us know. We're here to answer them. So we'll do a little introduction to everyone that's here. If you've ever emailed Kobo Writing Life at all, you've probably talked to at least one of us because we're a very small team. But we picked like 4 is a nice round number. So I'm Tara. I'm the Senior Manager of Author Experience for Kobo Writing Life. And we're going to go around and I'm going to get everyone to introduce themselves and give their top tip to authors. So Joni, you go first.
I'm Joni. I'm one of the author engagement specialists on the business team for Kobo Writing Life. You might have heard me on the podcast with Steph. I work a lot on audio promotions, library promotions a little bit, and lots of general author care.
And what's your top tip?
Top tip is to work with each retailer as an individual and take advantage of all of the different things that each retailer offers.
Nice. I like that one. All right, Stephanie, what about you next?
I'm Stephanie. I am the content management specialist for Kobo Writing Life. So that means that I try to make it as easy as possible for authors to publish their ebooks and audiobooks to Kobo. And my top tip, I also work on the podcast, like Joni mentioned. But my top tip is to update your metadata regularly. A lot of people overlook that and they only update a book maybe once or twice. And I'd say if you do it continually, you'll find new readers based on your updated descriptions.
So descriptions specifically or any aspect of the metadata?
I would say everything. Make sure your series are linked together. Make sure if you have a subtitle, you update the subtitle. But mostly also make sure your synopsis is updated because it might be out of date. I don't know. It depends.
Yeah, and I think sometimes authors forget that you can use kind of editing tools for the description. So you can like bold and italicize things through Kobo Writing Life. So it's a good tip.
Search engine optimization as well.
Yeah. Now, last but not least, Shayna.
Hi, so I am in charge of author relations and promotions. So basically I help authors to sell their books once they're live on Kobo Writing Life. And my pro tip would be to definitely get your cover professionally designed. A good cover goes a very, very long way when it comes to selling books.
Nice. And that's a tip from like our key marketer, but also as you're an author yourself.
Indeed. And a self-published author also. So.
Yeah, nice. And like our longest standing member, how long have you been working for Kobo Writing Life now?
Kobo Writing Life, 8 years, and Kobo almost 12 years.
Which seems crazy.
I know. It is crazy.
All right, so we have some comments coming in. I also have some questions that we got ahead of time. So what I'll do is sort of pick between both of them, and we'll try and get to as many live comments as we can. So Skye McKinnon is with us. So hello, former podcast guest, right?
Hello.
Yeah. And Rich Murray asks, Stephanie, when you say update, what if the description is good? You update it just to change it in general? Or if it's good, you can leave it?
I would say update it. Why not? Maybe you can see if you make little changes, if it makes a difference for customers picking up your book. The reason I talk about this is because we talked to Gail Carriger yesterday on the podcast, and she said that she killed her marketing for 3 months. She didn't do anything, and all she did was adjust her descriptions for all her books, and she still maintained the same level of sales. So I would say just like the little bit of, I've never heard of someone taking 3 months off of ads, but just see little changes can be a big difference. So I see why not experiment to see what happens.
And when is that episode going to come out?
It's October, I think.
Okay, cool. So keep an eye on that. That's amazing that she can stop her ads and was able to do that.
Well, she was saying like the most people find my books through search engines, which is good to know. Like she was trying to figure out where her money should be best spent. I'm giving away the whole episode here, but, but this is the hint, the little tidbit. But yeah, so that's what she figured out.
All right. And then, so I have another question. This is probably for you, Steph. This author is located in North America, but their book is written in Japanese. Can they still upload it on KWL, or do they need to provide a description of the story in English?
Nope, they can, if it's if the Japanese language, you can upload it to KWL. We accept a number of different languages. I don't know how many. Tara, do you know how many?
It's like basically all of them. Like
yeah, a lot. A lot of people update or upload their foreign language titles through KWL, so it's not a problem.
Yeah, and as long as your formatting is correct, because when it's like a non-Roman character, that's something to keep in mind. But yeah, should be not a problem at all. Sky has a question about audiobooks. So Joni, I'm going to throw this at you. So when will audiobook sales show on the dashboard?
That is something our developers are working on right now. We don't have an exact date, but it is high on our list of priorities to do a few things to the dashboard, and audiobooks are one of them.
Nice. So we had another question that came through prior to this about audio. So let's stick on audio for a little bit. So this question was from Maria Schneider. It says, can you talk about the importance of audio and the best book to publish in audio as far as genres or length? So I know that you've been starting to gather like audio promotions. Is there anything that you're seeing in terms of genre and length?
So I can talk more about what we learned from Christina and Elise, who do a lot of our marketing and audio promotions. On Kobo overall, so not just KWL, nonfiction and fiction tend to be, the general fiction tend to be the highest sellers. Next up, romance, and then mysteries. In terms of length, I don't think it matters. I think if your readers like your books and are audiobook fans, then they will probably purchase them in audio if that's what they're going to do. But I don't think there's a sweet spot for length. Although that's something we could ask Elise. Yeah. What was the other part of that? Length and
the genre for audio. Genre. Okay. Yeah. I think length is sort of interesting for when you think about audiobook bundles, because Steph, I know you've been seeing a number of these as she's the audiobook wizard that's putting the books up on the back end, that we're getting larger and larger like box sets, being like, you know, Kobo readers are big fans of box set in general. So audiobook box sets are sort of interesting because, you know, if you're a subscriber, you're using your credit to get that. And that's probably a good, good value to the consumer.
It's a good deal, yeah.
Well, Christina was saying that specifically for Kobo, people tend to buy audiobooks based on like the activity they're doing. So if you're marketing towards like sleeping, because that's what we learned, people like to listen to audiobooks before they sleep. I don't think the length really matters as long as you're like properly marketing what the audiobook could be listened to while you're doing a certain thing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and the Kobo app has a sleep timer, so it's pretty helpful because there's nothing worse than like waking up and you're like 20 chapters into an audiobook and you don't remember anything. Do
you listen to audiobooks before going to bed? Does Joni?
I do, but they're not sleepy audiobooks. It's just, it'll be something that I know well and I'll put it on for 20 minutes and then fall asleep. But it doesn't need to be like a sleepy book or a meditative book.
What's your favorite audiobook to sleep to?
Oh, I don't have one. It's just, I'll listen to something that I know the story well enough that it's not going to keep me awake.
Oh, fair enough. So there was a second part to Maria's question, and Shayna, I'm going to put this to you, being our promotions wizard. Now I'm going to call you all some sort of wizard. So Maria also wanted to know if it's possible to do kind of multi-author promotions, and what we can do to kind of help that. Is there a best way to work with Kobo on like a collaborative marketing effort?
Yeah, we definitely do multi-author promotions. So if you have, like, let's say you already have a group of authors, you can just email us at, writinglife@kobo.com, and, like, pitch your idea. And the thing, of course, you're going to want, which everyone wants, is to have as much space and promotion as possible. And we can't always give authors exactly what they want. Email space is limited, so there's not always space to fit in, just considering the number of authors that we're trying to accommodate, as well as the number of authors who are on Kobo through traditional publishers. There's just not always the amount of space that we want to be able to push everything. But definitely, usually we can get space for a list of books on our deals page, which is where all of the books that are on sale or have a price drop or on some kind of sale with a promo code, they're all listed there. So, and especially if we work far ahead. So right now, if someone was pitching something for October or November, it would be more likely to get space than like, for next week. So working far ahead and letting us know what your idea is, and getting a lot of authors together and already having that already planned, that's great, because that makes it easier for us. But of course, just keep in mind, if you're trying to organize something like that, if you're doing promotions through us, all the authors have to be Kobo Writing Life authors. Like, they can't be on Kobo through an aggregator or through a traditional publisher, because permissions and stuff gets confusing with that. So so just keep that in mind.
That's a great point that you had about working ahead. Is there something that authors should keep in mind about, like, what are our scheduling when how quickly do we work ahead?
Yeah, so we're always working. I mean, when we're planning like emails and banners and lists on certain pages of the site, we do work quite far ahead. Like right now, we've already put in requests for October. So, and we're still in August. So yeah, so we work a couple of months ahead. Of course, we're also always working on this month and then building the stuff for next month. So we're working on several months at once. But yeah, if you're going to tell me, let's say, if you want to tell us about a new release, it's always a good idea to give us sort of 4 to 6 weeks to keep in mind. We do sort of pitch all of the top new releases to the larger merchandising team that's in charge of like the new releases lists and the new releases emails. And we pitch that about a month to 5 weeks ahead. Mm-hmm. So it's always good to get this information to us earlier than that, so that you can be included.
Nice. That's good. So keep in mind, we are kind of working at least a month or 2 ahead. So yeah, that'll be kind of better chance that we can help your books if we were given that much time.
Which is tough because some authors don't work that far ahead, but it's always good to, maybe you should start. Just because it does make things easier for the retailers if you want to plan stuff.
Yeah, and that sort of leads in well to Ashley Farley has a question here on Facebook that says, I'm releasing a series this fall. Do you have any advice about getting more visibility for any series?
So series are good. It's easier to get stuff going with a series because there's going to be more books coming. So if you have a whole series that's going to be launching at once, that's great. Because my first advice would be to consider either dropping the price on the first book in the series or making it free. If you make your book free and you have our promo tab, you can apply for space on the free page. And it's a very successful tool to get people sort of like into your series, and then, are they likely to buy the next one if they've read this one and they like it? Yes, they are. So that's always a good idea. You can also do, let's say, like if you have multiple series, you could do a sale on one of your other series, dropping the price on the whole thing, and then of course mentioning at the end of your books, I have a new series coming out, and here's the links for the pre-orders and everything. So those are 2 things that are a good idea, and telling us about it. So emailing us at writinglife@kobo.com and letting us know, hey, I have this new series, and just so that we have it top of mind. And again, we can include it if we're pitching books, like I said, to the larger merchandising team. So
yeah, I think series always work very well for book selling because, the more books you have, the easier it is to market. And especially if you're kind of writing a gripping series that you're wanting the readers to follow you with. So Steph, can you talk a little bit about like why metadata is so important to selling series?
So if your metadata is correctly set up, meaning every book in the series is linked on our store, you'll see on the main product page of your first book, it'll be like all books in the series. So if they're linked, when someone reads and finishes your book, they're going to be immediately prompted to the next book in the series without you having to do anything. So as long as it's all correctly, I can't speak today. As long as it's correctly linked, your readers are going to know that the next book is coming, and they'll also we just recently launched push notifications. Is that what it's called?
I get those. I forgot about that.
So yeah, so it looks at your reading history and like, oh, this new book is going to be coming out. So your readers are automatically going to know when a new book comes out, regardless of what you've done, as long as your metadata is correct.
Something I like as well for like any iPhone users is that if you keep Kobo on what's that page where your like weather and stuff is, like the side page?
Oh yeah, like your notifications page?
Your like homepage. Yeah,
Control
it
panel.
has like, I add Kobo to that and it gives me a little prompt kind of like, hey, you should start this book.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And in terms of, just to add on to what Steph is saying, in terms of metadata for series, like if let's say your series is called, I don't know, The Burning Flame or something, and you put a space, let's say before the, in your second book, those aren't going to link. Or if you put like the burning flame and you put like the symbol number 2, but in the other one you use the field to put the 2 or the 3, those aren't going to link. So like it's little things like that. It's I find, don't you agree, Steph? It's not like people are putting like a different series name, but they're making these little mistakes.
Or like they'll won't put they'll just do like they'll miss a thing. Also, we should probably mention, like, if you have a novella that's like 0.5, you can include in the volume number name. And also, if your books are in Kobo Plus and it's linked together, people are also going to get prompts for your series in that way.
Yeah, basically, we're trying to sell your series as best we can, but we can't do it without metadata because, you know, our computers are very sophisticated, but they can't guess everything, sadly. So we have a question from Linda Hill that says, will there be any way to know if I get Kobo Plus borrows, or we have to wait until they read it and the money is calculated? So right now we don't have Kobo Plus reporting on the dashboard, but we're hoping to add that very, very soon. So the way that you will see the reads is that you receive a sales report. Joni, correct me where the sales report section is.
Under my account, payment information.
Okay.
Yeah. On your, like when you sign into your author account.
Yeah. So then you'll see your monthly sales report, and then you also get a separate one for Kobo Plus. So you'll see any reads there, and it'll give you the details. And then, so Valerie Eubanks has a question. So she missed the question about audiobook sales on the dashboard. So the answer, Valerie, is that not yet, but we're also working on that. And I would like to know when the promo tab will include audiobook promotions. I recently switched my main romance series from Find a Way to Kobo Direct, so I can do audio promos. Awesome. Yay. That's great to hear. I signed up to be alerted, but haven't gotten an alert from any promos yet. So Joni, can you talk about audio promos?
That's on me then. Depending on when you signed up, then, okay. Can you email me directly? If you email writinglife@kobo.com and just put my name, Joni, then I'll get it. And I will help you out with that because we are looking for submissions right now for a sale. So I would love to talk to you.
But yeah, for on the promo tab right now on our back end, it's not possible to include audiobooks and promotions. I'm sure it's on the roadmap to be worked on. I'm not sure if it's being worked on right now, so it might be a little while. So it really is talking directly to a member of the team, Joni, specifically, to get, so just email in and be like, I have this audiobook, can we do promotions? And
and can you tell us, Joni, can you tell us about the promotion that you're gathering?
So this one is exciting because it's KWL only. It's not, normally we hop on to whatever the merch department are doing. So this one is KWL price drop. So it's all genres. And we're looking for as many books as possible. So I would like titles, I think by the end of this week would be ideal. So I will definitely provide more information to anyone that wants it. Email writinglife@kobo.com, put Joni, and it will come to me and I will give you information. Excellent. And that's going to be running in September.
I'm excited to see how that works out because that's the first time that we've done something like that. Mm-hmm. So we've mentioned the promo tab a couple of times, but Shayna, do you want to kind of just give some context about what this is if an author is maybe not familiar? Because not everyone sees it right away.
So the promo tab is something that you can ask for. It isn't automatically added to the dashboard of everyone. So if you want one to find out what kind of sales and promotions we're doing, you can just email us and we will most likely give it to you. So on the promo tab, we list any sales that we're currently collecting for or promotions. So for example, one thing that's permanently there is options to submit for space on the free page, which we update once a week. We have a daily deal feature. We have a few days a month, and that is a feature where you get featured with a price drop on your book on the homepage of our website. There's also a double daily deal, which is sort of lower down on the deals page. And then we have all kinds of promotions that come up and down. So we'll put it up. Like, let's say we have a 40% off sale that we do every month. So we'll put that up when we're submitting, and then it will be taken down when I fill the submission. So depending on what day you're looking at the promo tab, you might not see a lot of sales, but there's always more coming. It kind of changes every day or every week, I guess you could say. And so we do genre promotions, price drop promotions. There are also, if you see anything with a percentage, like 40% off, it'll say in the description that that's a promo code sale, which means you don't have to drop your price. because the discount is delivered at checkout. So you don't have to worry about other retailers price matching, which is very important to a lot of authors. Yeah, so it's an excited way for you to be able to submit yourself to promotions. There is someone else on the other end, which is usually me, choosing which books go into promotions. And if you don't get in right away, don't be discouraged. We have a lot of authors competing for spots, and there isn't unlimited spots in every sale. Like, for example, for the daily deal, of course, we can only pick one book because it's a daily deal, so it only lasts for one day, and we can only pick one book, and we often get like 60 or 70 submissions. So there's a lot of books that we have to decline, even if they're great books. And we try to give a reason why, if there's time. Especially if there's something you've done particularly wrong. Let's say you haven't discounted your book in all the required territories, then I'll probably like write a reason like you forgot to do that. But most of the rest of the time, if you kind of get a generic, you've been declined, please try again, and please do try again, because we have lots of sales going on all the time.
Nice, thank you. And Sky has a question there that says, when a promo says one submission per author, does that mean pen name or the whole account?
It means pen name. And I'm trying to take that out, because often it's not that necessary. We were leaving that in a lot of the time when we were worried about getting too many submissions. And so if we start getting a lot of authors asking for the promo tab after this, maybe we'll put that back in. But yeah, generally it means per author name or pen name.
Yeah, and we're constantly making updates to the promo tab and trying to tweak it so it's improved. Can you talk a little bit about like my favorite new thing, which is the field where people can enter information when they submit, and why that's important?
We finally added a comments field, which is awesome, because often, like, let's say you're submitting for a daily deal or a double daily deal, you're doing it for a certain reason, usually because you have a sale going on, probably with BookBub, which is the most popular marketing for ebooks out there right now. And you have a BookBub on a certain date, and that's why you're applying for that date and not another date, and you want me to know. Before, we didn't have a comments field, so you couldn't really tell us. Now we do. So if you have a BookBub, or if, for example, it's the first book in a series, or the first time a book is being discounted, the first time it's being free, you've just come to Kobo for the first time, and this is your first time submitting, any kind of details like that are great to put in that comment field, because, you know, it'll grab my attention. It'll give you maybe a better chance of being chosen. So.
Awesome. And one thing I would say as well is that we're kind of noticing a lot of people that are kind of dipping their toe in to go wide for the first time, having been exclusive in other platforms. So it might be good to also enter that if you're entering promotions, that like you were trying to get your build up your wide audience. So it's good for us to know that. Yes,
definitely, for sure.
Shayna, I'm going to stay with you and then I'm going to move along, because Richard Murray sent us a lot of questions. But as we're talking about the promotions tool, what promotions are least underutilized? So what are the promotions
most underutilized, I think?
Yes, what are most underutilized?
We don't have a ton of different ones, so I think they all get a lot of submissions, if that's what you mean by underutilized, like not a lot of people are submitting. The bigger sales are let me answer it this way. The bigger sales are a really good idea to submit to. So for example, a 40% off sale, we're accepting a large number of titles, sometimes hundreds of titles. So obviously your likelihood of being chosen is higher than for a daily deal or a double daily deal spot where we're only choosing one per day. And by the way, you can't, like, if I'm declining books, I can't move one of these books to another date. Which I think is not always clear to authors. So like, let's say on one day I get 50 submissions and the next day I only get 3. I have to decline 49 of them, and I can't move them to the next date. And I could write it into the rejection reason, but I'd have to wait for the person to submit again. So anyways, they all get a lot of attention. It also depends on what genre you're in. For example, for the free page, we have lists that you can submit for in different genres. The most popular genre by far is romance. So I will get, we update this list with 6 new books a week, and I'll get, 100 submissions. Whereas the sci-fi list, which is lower down the page, will only get 5 submissions. So it's a lot easier to get in. Of course, you can only submit for the genre that your book is in. You can't like change the genre to try to get onto the page. But it's just something to keep in mind. Some of these genres, it's almost guaranteed that you're going to get in, because if you have a good cover and a decent book that you're selling, because there's just more space because there's not as many submissions in that genre. But yeah, I guess I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, no, I think that was great. All right, Shayna, you're off the hook for a sec. Joni, I'm going to go to you. So there was a question about what Kobo Writing Life book is most popular with libraries. But let's maybe roll it back. And can you just talk about Kobo's relationship with libraries in general?
Yeah, so a lot of you already know that we are partnered with Overdrive for library distribution. So we work very closely with them. Steph can talk more about the mechanics of actually distributing to Overdrive, but at the moment, we, in terms of how it works for an author, you simply have to opt your book in when you are on the rights and distribution page of uploading, and you have to set a library price. So your library price should always be a little bit higher than your retail price, because remember that the library is only going to purchase it once, and then they can lend it out essentially forever. So you set a library price, and that's it. It's available for Overdrive to buy and put into their individual library catalogs. Something that we've added recently, which is really cool, is an alternative to that purchasing once and then lending out forever, and that's cost per checkout. So you might notice that sometimes instead of getting, so at the moment you'll get 50% on library sales for lending out perpetually, but cost per checkout, the library pays 10% of your library price, and they lend it out one time. And so typically that'll happen if a reader requests it. The more requests you get, the more likely the library is to buy it and put it into their catalog. But it just gives libraries a little bit more accessibility, options to get to know your books, and for your readers to have a little bit of autonomy in requesting. So we're excited about that one. We also work with libraries on promotions. Overdrive runs monthly promotions, normally genre focused. So right now they are doing their back to school sale. So that's a lot of YA and educational and children's books. February, they typically do romance, that kind of thing. So we work with them to get titles for that as well. So that's another thing that if you're interested in and you're not already on my list for library outreach, then let me know and we can get you sorted with library sales as well.
Awesome. That's great. Sky also asked another question. Are there any plans of having author pages where readers might be able to follow authors and get email notifications for releases? Sky, I would absolutely love that. I don't know if there's any plans on Kobo's roadmap in general, but I'll be sure to bring this back to the team and be like, hey, look at what this author would like. But that would be amazing. I'm sure it is something that we've definitely considered. I'm going to move to Steph. Steph, we have another question from Richard that says, I'm a poet who created a few poetry books. Can you recommend a poetry books, any poetry book? And then also, is there any genre that doesn't exist in ebook?
So I had to deep dive into poetry books because I don't actually read a lot of poetry books, but looking in our catalog, there's a poetry book for everything. So I was looking, there's the classic poetry books we have, people talking about their personal lives. We have kids poetry books. We have, let me see my notes here, mental health, love, all the kind of different poetry books. So there are many different genres of poetry that we have on our store. I'm going to talk about Milk and Honey, which is a Canadian poetry book by Rupi Kaur. So that poetry book was actually first self-published before it was picked up by a publisher.
I only browsed her Instagram. I haven't actually read the book yet, but the hardcover is beautiful and I should download the ebook. I definitely should.
Yeah, so I recommend checking that out. She's a big poetry person in Canada. I think her Instagram also includes like poetry that she'll do. Like
how she kind of got so popular is that she had self-published this book and then she was using Instagram in such an interesting way because I feel like it's still a little bit underutilized with authors. So yeah, she just goes to show what you can do online.
Yeah. We also talked to Jasmine Carr on the podcast who does a similar sort of thing with poetry and mixed media on Instagram. And that was a really cool interview as well, if that's something that you're interested in.
What's the title of her book? Oh,
I forgot. I do know because you put me on the
I know.
I think poetry as ebooks is really interesting, what you can do in terms of like the different spacing when you're actually getting into the technicalities of like putting an EPUB together. Like there's so much more that you can do, especially with like an EPUB 3. It's an interesting space. I have a cousin who's a poet that I'm desperately trying to like let me publish her books. She won't.
Okay, the title of Jasmine's books is When You Ask Me Where I'm Going.
Oh, okay, awesome.
And then, okay, so the second part of that question, what genre do I think ebook is missing? So I would say the great thing about self-publishing is that anyone can do it. So if you have a story that you think people need to read or that you're interested in and that you want to read as a reader, that I think self-publishing kind of handles that for you. So it's a great chance for diverse authors to publish anything, own voices, stories to come out. So I personally don't think there's anything really missing. I think there needs to be more of them. Maybe we just don't know it yet. So I think that just in the coming years, I expect to see more people publishing in a variety of genres that maybe traditional publishers overlook. Yeah,
I think the only thing that I can think of at the top of my head that doesn't lend to ebooks or anything that's activity based.
Coloring books.
You just can't do it.
I would say maybe nonfiction is not as popular self-published, but I'm seeing more being published as we continue on. I think more people are realizing like if they're a subject matter expert in something that they can publish the book themselves. So that's becoming more popular.
I think with nonfiction too, the formatting tools available have gotten so much better. So it's easy to have a file that has like a lot of footnotes or back and forth. Whereas in the early days of digital books, they were a bit more clunky. So it like lended itself better to just a story flow.
Yeah, I mean, anything is possible now.
Yeah,
truly.
Nice. And Sky, don't worry about asking all the questions. Love the questions, just so keep them coming. Shayna, I have a very specific promo question from Linda Hill. So she says, I have a 40% promo coming up that states books will be on sale in Canada, Australia, New Zealand, with the possibility of placement in the US and UK as well. How will I know whether or not to push the sale in the US and the UK? Is there a way that she can find this out?
Yeah, I guess it's a little bit odd that was in that for 40% off, because I know we have that wording for our double daily deals, but we will let you know. It should be included when you get the email with the links when the sale goes live. It should let you know if it's live in all geos, but it should be. You can also
you send
email into writinglife.com because I could look into that. It's a little bit odd. Maybe we made a mistake when we were putting up the description. I'm not sure.
But you include all of the links to the different territories. So you'd be able to tell.
Generally with a 40% off sale, it's one link for all the geos because you don't have to, there's no reason to have different links. Some of our sales require different links for different geos, but for a 40% off sale, it's one link. So yeah, you might want to, it was Linda, right?
Yes.
You might want to just email us so I can double check on that for you.
Okay, great. And Maggie Holman sent a question as well that says, hi there, I'm brand new to Kobo and just self-published my 3 books. Is there a way to track the traffic to my sales page? There isn't currently a way to track the traffic directly on your sales page. That would be something that would be really interesting. And maybe if I believe our dev team might be watching this, or like take some notes about the things that we want. But yeah, thank you for that question. And then Lee Patterson has a question as well, which is also an interesting idea. Can I use earnings shown on my dashboard to pay for advertising? So Shayna, what are your thoughts on that? Like you could use your earnings.
So we have very few promotions right now where you actually have to pay a flat fee up front. It's just for inclusion on the free page and our daily deal, which is there are only 3 of those a month. And that one is quite expensive because it's very high profile. It's on the homepage of the site. And it's not possible to use your earnings to pay for that right now. It is a very interesting idea. Mm-hmm. So for other promotions, we do like a 10% reduction in what you're going to be paid. So since you're not paying anything up front, it just reduces what you're going to earn. So that's sort of taken care of. You don't have to pay anything. But yeah, that's something interesting to take away. Unfortunately, it's not possible right now, but maybe in the future.
Yeah, thankfully, that was a good takeaway. Juliana has a question saying, hi, love KWL, but would like to see pre-orders on the dashboard. Is that something on the to-do list? Joni, you want to take that?
It is on our to-do list. We get asked about it a lot, and so we've taken that back to our dev team, and they are working on that along with some of the other dashboard updates that we mentioned earlier. We know there's a list.
I'm excited for authors to see what we're working on when it is available to go out. But yeah.
But something you should know, if you think you just can't track pre-orders, like you can email us. If you send us the ISBN, we'll always look for it. We'll always grab those numbers for you, and you can do it as many times as you want to before your book comes out. We don't mind. So if you need those numbers, we can grab them.
Nice. Steph, a question for you from Ido Laka. I hope I'm pronouncing that okay. I noticed that there was no option to search books by language. So I have a suggestion that maybe you should do something about that. I believe he's referring to the Kobo store itself, or maybe on the KWL side as well. Can you kind of comment on both?
Like searching for a book by language in your
let's
dashboard?
take dashboard first, and then we'll take the Kobo store.
Okay. Yeah, that's not an option yet. I think that'd be a great idea for authors to be able to do. Development team, are you listening? But I mean, that's a great suggestion. We'll take it back to them. But as for searching by language on the store, you can actually do that. So if you go to the search page of a, like, let's say you're searching for the title of your book, on the left-hand side, there's a filter by languages. So it says all, and then it goes down into every individual language. So you can actually filter your results to get only books in a specific language. I don't know what it automatically filters to. I think you adjust it yourself, but it is an option.
It defaults, I think, based on your customer information. So where you, like when you're inputting and creating your account, where you say you're located, it defaults to that.
Yeah, so you might have to change it if you have a French book, but you live in Canada, so you might have to do a little bit of adjustments there, but it is an option.
Yeah, that's a good tip though, but it's on the lower left-hand side, and then you can just go all languages and you'll see everything. Or you could choose one specific language. I do that sometimes too. So we have another question that says, my book is ready to be published, but how much lead time is recommended as far as promotion goes in order to benefit myself and the staff before my book is actually released? So I think we sort of said that we work 2 months ahead, but I'm kind of going to rephrase this question to Shayna. Do you have like a recommended time period for like a pre-order, for instance?
Yeah, I mean, that's really hard to say.
You just released a new book. How long was your pre-order up for?
Yeah, my pre-order was up for a couple of months. And to be honest, it was just decided by when the book cover was ready. Because one of the very important things that you need before you put your book up is to have your synopsis written, your book cover, you know what price you want to put it up as, and like in which geos. But the book cover is a big stumbling block. So once it was live, I just put it up. But yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, some authors work insanely far in advance, so we'll have dates far into 2021 already.
Wow.
Again, I really think this depends on them having book covers done, and especially if they're doing a series, I think they get them all made at the same time, and then they just put them up. But like a couple of months lead time, I think is probably ideal, and it depends on what kind of marketing you're going to be doing with the pre-order. To be honest, we don't do a ton of promotions involving pre-orders, but it kind of depends on what you're doing on your end, and how you want to get the word out. Do you want to get the word out once it's already live or before time?
Yeah, this is sort of a question that's just coming to me now as we're talking about pre-orders, but anyone can feel free to answer. Do you ever think that there's a use case for like not putting your book up as a pre-order?
Yeah, I just like people do use it to build anticipation for their book, right?
Yeah.
So, and I think some authors do not do pre-orders, but I think it really has more to do with they're afraid. Are they gonna forget to load the final file, and it's gonna go up without any actual ebook in it, which is always a danger. You have to keep track of that stuff as authors. But yeah, I'm not really sure. Yeah. I really benefit from it. So like, just to give you the point of view from my job, because I work 2 months in advance and every author in KWL doesn't email me directly, thank God. Please don't everyone email me.
She's
That would
joking.
be
You can email her.
100,000 emails, so that's not good. But I use the pre-order report that we get, like I pull all the KWL books that are on pre-order, and I use those to work on what books are coming out in November, which is going to be my next presentation to the larger team. So your book being on pre-order does benefit you in that way. If you're not even talking to me directly, I'm still getting eyes on it, because we do need to plan ahead. Because otherwise, we don't know your book is coming out unless you tell us. So it doesn't go into our calendar. It doesn't go into any planning. So in that way, it is very useful to have a pre-order up on Kobo.
That's a great top tip that I don't know if we've shared with authors before, actually, that we're keeping an eye on that and spreading those to the larger merchandising team at Kobo.
Yeah, definitely.
And Shayna, you also have a form that authors can fill out, right? When they have a new release coming out, if it's not on pre-order.
So,
and I think that lives in the help center.
Exactly. In the help center, it must be an email about, do you have a new book? Did you just publish or something like that? There's a link where it says, if you have a new release, click here, fill out this form. So you just put in the basic information about your book, including the release date and the genre and the title. And when you submit that form, it actually goes directly to me. So I also use that to fill in my new releases calendar and make my plans. So yeah, that's another good one to use.
Nice.
And Laura, you're too shy to email directly.
I think we tweeted it out recently. So Laura, if you could chuck it in the comments there, that'd be helpful.
Yeah.
And I added one for audio this week as well. So
nice. Carol asked, is there a way to see your Kobo Plus statistics? So we talked about that a little bit earlier, Carol. Not yet, but that's coming, but you can see them in your sales report. But that leads into another question that we had from Elise that says, will Kobo Plus be coming to other countries? And if so, is there an indication of timeline? And the answer is, we can't tell you yet. But so we just launched Canada just a month ago. So Kobo Plus was launched in 2017 in the Netherlands and Belgium, and it's been really successful there. Canada was launched in July, so we're really excited to see that. And we're always looking for different markets to see where it would suit. Subscription programs seem to be ever increasing as ways for people to consume media. So I would say keep an eye on our social, sign up for our newsletter. That's where we announce a lot of our news, obviously. And Laura, if you could put a link to the newsletter sign up as well, thanks. And yeah, keep an eye on that. And that's where you'll find out any new information. So John Kuhn had a question that says, will there be an opportunity in the near future for authors to run self-serve advertisements on Kobo's website like there is now with other prominent online booksellers? Yes, it is definitely something that we're interested in. We don't have any immediate timeline. So not in the very near future, but again, like if you sign up to our newsletter, that's where you'll find out where any new features are coming. And also one thing to notice is that we're also looking for, authors to interview about their experience to get your feedback. So if you're interested at all in like helping us test new features, we'd love to get those as well. And Ashley, yes, the email, you have it perfect, writinglife@kobo.com. That's exactly it. So Gary Rogers has a question. I don't know who, anyone can take this one. Is there an ideal word count for a synopsis, blurb, or the product description? So Steph, there's a limit, right?
I'm not sure of the limit. It's actually pretty big now that I'm trying to figure it out. I mean, just based off my own consumer preferences, if a synopsis is too long, I'm not going to read it. Because
it's too long.
It's because it's too long. Unfortunately, based on my social media habits, my attention span is very small. So I would say grab your reader with a tagline. So not the smaller the better, but concise and
it's interesting. So because I recently self-published a new book and I was trying out print on demand as well. If you're traditional publishers, when they do the blurb for the back, there's actually rules because I worked with a professional blurb writer, and she was saying it's incredibly short, the rules. For a print book, it's 250 words, I think, is the absolute max. I wrote one myself and had her editing it, and she's like, this is insanely long. It was like 3 paragraphs. So it's very short. However, many of the authors on our site who are bestsellers and self-published take the opportunity, because there's no one telling them how long the blurb has to be, to write one that's actually quite long. And they're doing fine. So, it's all up to you. Like, it depends on how complicated your plot is, how much information you want to put in there. Maybe there's something that really needs to be in there and it's just not going to fit in the first 100 words. I don't think it's going to, hurt anything. But yeah, like Steph was saying, if you make it too long, people get bored. So
yeah, on the Kobo site, we shorten it, and then there's like an expansion to when it's longer. So I think
how many people are clicking on that
exactly
to see your third paragraph? I don't know.
Yeah,
I mean, you can include review, like snippet of reviews in your synopsis. I don't know if people find that helpful. I don't know if I read them truly, but like I find that like it's a bold review kind of drags your attention to it.
You could technically, and some authors put, like, I think it might be some of our top authors put like every single one of their other books in a list in the synopsis itself. And that must be working for them because they do it continuously.
I don't know though. Maybe it's because
that's a lot of stuff, especially if you have a lot of books.
Yeah, but we also link them at the bottom, like so the more by this author or like
it's really not necessarily to do that. But if
the more complicated formatting tends to sometimes have problems, so just keep that in mind. Also, like so many paragraphs, so many italics, a lot of stars. Like, don't overcomplicate that because our website cannot handle it.
Yeah. And Brian Cohen is a really good resource for, I think he does a course specifically on how to write a very good blurb. So if you're interested, Gary, I'd recommend going to kind of look in his stuff. If Laura, can you just pop Brian's name in the chat there as well?
Who else is good? Adam Croft has some great advice on writing a good marketing hook.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So he wrote an article for our blog, but he also has talked about it a lot in his own stuff.
Yeah. He's former podcast guest or upcoming. Yeah. You guys are pros at this podcast. You work so far ahead. Speaking of, question that I wanted to ask you. So also going to ask Laura, can you pop the podcast link into this chat too? So it's called the Kobo Writing Life podcast. Steph and Joni are the hosts with the most. So
thank you.
I'm sorry. So I want to know from both of you, who's been your favorite guest so far and why?
This is the hardest question. And now I feel bad when I'm like to an author, can you tell us your favorite book? Because like, there can't be an answer. I'm going to say there's a few that are sticking out to me that I think people would be interested in. So we do a lot of like behind the scenes at Kobo. So Christina Mendez talked about marketing globally. She had a lot of great insight into the Kobo customer, like stuff that I didn't even know about and like information that she could share that could grow your sales in that way. We talked to Elise about audiobooks, Elise Daniels about, again, what do Kobo customers look for in audiobooks, how to price your audiobooks, because she gave a lot of great tips to like not, like keep in mind that audiobooks are going to be sold by a token, so like a subscription, so you kind of want your price to fit in with that.
Not always by a subscription, but that option is there.
Yeah, but like it's an option, so to keep that. What else? And then I guess, Joni, do you have like authors that you? I mean, all of them have great tips.
Before we started, and I still don't have an answer because, in all honesty, like even when like we sign on and I'm kind of tired or whatever, like these conversations are always really interesting, and talking to authors is great. And I also have a bit of a goldfish memory about it, so everything that's standing out is stuff that we've done recently, so it'll come up. But I can say that we've talked to a lot of really great guests. I quite like when we talk to authors who are really new and have just launched a debut and they're kind of really hyped up about craft and they want to talk about that. I really like talking to authors about craft. Recently, we talked to Gail Carragher yesterday, who was fantastic.
So interesting. Karen
Slaughter was fantastic. That's another recent one. The casts, Kristen and PC cast, were really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Like everyone we've talked to in the last couple of weeks has been great, but that is just because my memory is like a goldfish.
But like anyone we've talked to, no matter who they are, someone has a great tip on something.
Yeah,
like,
I don't think we've ever done an interview. I mean, like not a single interesting thing was said. Like it's always interesting, and there's so many perspectives, and it's it's a really fun part of the job.
Yeah, and I like that the content is all evergreen too. It's always relevant. Like, sure, there'll be a new book release, but the advice is always current and like long lasting.
There was a point in March where we kept saying, it's the pandemic right now, so if this is outdated when it comes out, because we were so naive.
I know. Remember in March when we thought it would be done soon?
We were wrong.
It is all pretty relevant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a question for kind of everyone too. So there's 10 minutes left. So if anyone that's watching has questions, be sure to pop them in and we'll get to those. But something that I wanted to ask the team members as we're kind of all in one place. So what would be some advice that you'd give to authors that are moving to put their books wide for the first time? So they have their platform built up on another place, but now they're branching out and trying to make their mark publishing in many, many places.
I would say when you go into this, have enough, I guess, financial security that you're not going to panic and pull out, because it can take some time and you need to be committed to it for the long haul. Because I think one of the worst things you can do is yank your books in and out of exclusive programs. It upsets your readers. It toys with our rankings and algorithms, and it won't help you. So I think you need to be very sure when you go into it, okay, I'm going to do this, I'm going to stick to it. And that might take 2 years, but I think it'll be worth it.
Nice.
I would say you have to treat each book that's being taken out of an exclusive program as a new release. So you're going to email, I would say you have to email your readers being like, this is a new release, basically. Like, this book is becoming available. These are all the retailer, link to every retailer that it's going to be available on. And treat it as a new release. Like, those readers don't know about that series. They don't know anything because it's only been in one spot. So you can have a whole big marketing push behind that one or series that you're releasing.
Yeah, that's great advice.
The thing about the links, do that.
Remember the links on your website include the links now to all the retailers. You're going to have to make different EPUBs for each retailer, which sounds annoying, but once you get the links at the back, linking to each retailer, it's definitely worth it, because when the reader gets to the last page, you don't want them getting a link to the different retailer. It'll just confuse them.
And you can create a universal link for your book on Kobo. So that means when anyone hits that link, they're going to get redirected to the store in their country that they live in. So you just have to delete the language and the country code from the URL link, and then it will link to anything. And that's a lot of people only link to the Kobo store that they live in, but we're global. So
yeah, I'm going to ask Laura to put that. There's an article on how to do that from our help center on how to create a universal link on Kobo. So throw that in the chat, because sometimes it can be kind of off-putting because it's very easy to redirect back to your store, but as a customer, all you see is kind of like, you can't purchase in this region. And it doesn't mean there's anything wrong with your book. It's just that you're in the wrong store.
It's always good to keep in mind that our biggest market is still Canada. That is where we get a lot of sales. So if you were in any way going to be focusing on a certain geo, that is where we all live. And it is still the big deal for English language books. So, which is not the same as all the other retailers. So.
Yeah, and there's definitely what we've been seeing on Instagram yesterday. I know that we shared, a lot of authors are sharing their KWL maps. So it's really exciting to see their dashboard maps and showing like all the little dots of where their sales are. So I would say that something to keep in mind when you're going wide is to look at this as a global sales platform. Sure, we are kind of like, North America is our primary #1 spot, but we sell all over the world. So take a look at our Instagram and see all those for inspiration. I'm always kind of mouth on the floor looking at that sort of stuff. All right, so for the last question that I have prepared, if there's any other questions, be sure to pop them in. I want to hear you guys' predictions for the future of publishing.
Oh, God. I don't know. That's a hard question. I don't know how to answer this.
Joni, you had some thoughts before.
So we talked about this a little bit in our podcast interview yesterday, and I think that the pandemic has changed things a little bit because trad publishing has been able to just go along for decades, longer than that, and just do the same thing and just keep doing the same thing, because people do love to read and people do love books. And I think that there's going to be a little bit of a shakeup with this, because it has affected trad publishing. It hasn't diminished the number of readers or the number of people buying books, but it's changed the way that the publishing industry works. And for example, trad has been a little reluctant with ebooks and audio, and I think that that's really changing with the way that people's reading habits have changed. So I think that I don't really have a prediction for how it will change, but I do think that there's something that trad publishing will be affected by this.
What do you think is going to happen in the coming month or so? Because at the start of this pandemic, we had a lot of releases were delayed, whereas any independent authors that I talk to, and they're just like, it's business as usual for me. Like, my marketing is like all set out, whereas we have our traditional publishers that are so reliant on like bookstores to push the release. Like, what do you think is going to happen in September? It's going to be like hundreds of more
and
books.
September is a huge time for traditional publishers to be releasing books to get everything in before Christmas. I'm assuming they're just going to have to give in and start publishing all these books that have been delayed. It's like the movie business, you know, like none of the movies are coming out. They're going to have to give in at some point. Yeah, it's interesting. It is. There's like, I feel like there's a growing divide.
I mean, maybe print's going to be less important. Like maybe you don't need print. Like a traditional publisher doesn't need print and ebook at the same time. They could do ebook first, and then based on the sales of that, they can make to print. I really don't know.
Yeah.
I think more online promotions, like I think we did see a lot of that, like authors pushing their new books on social media, because I don't know how much they actually get out of book tours and that kind of thing, but that's been a big part of the trad release process, and I don't know that it necessarily translates to sales, and maybe that's something that they'll reevaluate. I could be wrong, like maybe book tours are fantastic for sales, but there might be more online. Have you ever done a book
tour, Shayna?
No. Okay. I did for when I released.
You did a signing though, right?
I did a signing at like the local chapters, which was kind of, it was like badly planned. It was on Thanksgiving. We didn't realize that it was Thanksgiving. We're like, why did we do this? But I did a blog tour when I released one of my romance books, which I right under a pen name, which was interesting. It's sort of like your book gets reviewed by a whole bunch of different bloggers. And it's like a tour, so you get a whole bunch of reviews, basically, and they push your book. Well, it's not necessarily pushing because they might not have liked it, but depending on the review, you get reviews on a bunch of different sites. So that was interesting. It's good for a genre. But that was a few years ago, and I'm not sure it's quite as popular anymore.
No, so what I've noticed people doing now, because blogs are sort of becoming less popular than they were then, which would have been maybe their peak. But newsletter swaps, I think that's the equivalent now, is you build your readership through your newsletter and you do little swap outs with similar authors.
Yeah.
You also make your book available to that person's specific readers. So you offer the free book to their readership, which I've been noticing recently in my own newsletters that I receive.
P.S. Is that legal? I'm not sure, but anyways.
I think you have to agree. You have to agree that you're like, I realize I'm signing up for. Actually, no. Well, if you're going to get their newsletter directly, you have to.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, I think you always have to ask for permission for people to sign up. You can't just willy-nilly email people.
Oh, wow. Don't do that. Don't do that.
So what do you guys think about audio? Do you think that's going to keep taking over the world? Like, smart speakers, like how is that going to affect the audiobook market?
I feel like audiobooks is going to be like a podcast. Like, move away from buying individual audiobooks, but like they're going to be available on like Spotify.
You realize that's happening already.
Yeah. So maybe because podcasts are so popular, people will expect to get I mean, it's not great, but maybe certain types of audiobooks will be on podcast platforms only. I don't know. But
it's interesting with Spotify because you say the podcasts are free, but people pay for Spotify. So
exactly. I don't know.
Yeah. So there could be a whole new thing, I see it ever increasing. Like, I think people are just going to keep wanting to listen to books. It's this whole new audience that we hadn't potentially had before. So yeah, I think that it's kind of just gearing up to keep going. Sheena, do you have audiobooks?
No, audiobooks are quite expensive to make.
They are.
I have not ventured into that
You should.
situation yet. I know I definitely should.
Sorry, Joni, I cut you off there.
No, I wondered if our reading habits like have been affected by a lot of the stay-at-home, like the lockdown stuff. But I don't know that I think that translates to ebook rather than audio because people are less busy. There's no work commute right now. That's when I listen to a lot of my audio is walking to work, driving to work, like that kind of thing, going to the gym, like all those things that people weren't able to do for a while. We're now opening up and doing. But I think that audiobooks are kind of a result of our busy lives and running around a lot. And
Heard a lot of people using like children's audiobooks were quite popular, and we had that promotion with the Harry Potter series. Yeah,
that's a good point. Yeah.
All right. Well, we've hit 1 p.m. In Toronto here on the nose. So yeah, is there anything that you'd like to say as a last sign off, guys?
Thanks for listening.
Thanks for watching.
Yeah, thanks for all the wonderful questions. And if there's anything that we didn't answer or that you want to know, please don't hesitate to email us at writinglife@kobo.com. And yeah, I'll see you guys next month for some more chats. So